You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. From our compound, from the West Coast to the East Coast to worldwide, both on the internet and terrestrial radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark.
And it is dark. Well, right now on the compound, it is 5:31 p.m. Well, let's get a hold of our next guest, Paul. He's going to be talking about his book. And, well, we're going to get into a great conversation. So, I'll tell you what, this night is going by fast. Well, hi, Paul. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, good evening. How are you?
I am doing good. How about yourself?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I hear you fine.
All right. So, instead of, because you've got only about an hour, I guess I'll let you, start with your questions, whatever you have.
Well, I kind of don't do that. First thing I'm going to do is, I don't know how many times you've been interviewed. I've been doing this since 1976. So I have quite a few years under my belt. Paul, what got you into writing?
Well, it's not that I got interested in writing. It's that I received a message that I needed to get this kind of information out to the public. What I wrote is truth disguised as science fiction. One, to kind of make the book entertaining, to mix in a little bit of fiction, and two, to protect the individuals that I fictionalize in the book, who are based on real people, that if their identities would be known, there would be some harm to them.
Oh, wow. So why don't you, first thing, why don't you tell everybody about you, what you do professionally, and then what, you got going in this book. Again, who communicated with you, and, what is the message out there for the listeners? Let's go into that. I mean, and all that stuff.
Okay, a little bit about myself. I live in West Virginia, in rural West Virginia. I grew up mostly in Chicagoland area, so I'm very familiar with the Chicagoland area. And I have a degree in architecture, so I am an architect with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And before that, I was 13 years in the Air Force as an officer. So the novel itself is really based on myself, and it's based on the past 10 years of experiences. But it begins with how I developed my belief system, and the key point in my life was when in the Air Force I discovered a secret basement in a building that wasn't supposed to have a secret basement, and that the basement itself had a cryogenic chamber. And so I put two and two together because I knew about the installation. I knew about, the name of the facility, first of all, is called Foreign Technology Division. So that should give you a hint of what it's all about. Highly sensitive facility with motion detectors on the lawn, and compartmentalized so that individuals in one room do not know what's going on in the other room. So everyone has their own security system to get into those individual rooms. So it's a very highly sensitive building, and it kind of coincided with what was written in Corso's book about the day after Roswell, where he indicated that the corpses were shipped off to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and that's where the facility is at. And interestingly enough, now after looking on Google, that building, it was a huge warehouse building, and pretty modern too. It's completely off the map now. It's gone. There's a parking lot in its place. It's like nothing was there before.
Interesting.
So your question is, who communicated to me? And later on, it's about 2009 is when I started to, I guess, get into the rabbit hole. I started to meditate, become a little more spiritual, and I started to communicate with psychic women. And they would give me all the same comment that there was something special about me, that there was something unique, and they would be hinting that kind of thing with me. And I finally befriended a spiritual woman, and she would get transmissions. What would happen is that she'd be communicating with me. She'd go into a trance, and then during the trance, she would get transmissions from, I guess, what she calls the Watchers, and they would communicate with me. And all this transmission, everything that I told you about, including the episode at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, I condensed it all in the novel. So everything that occurs to the main character is pretty much the communication, the messages. It's all about what happened to me.
Well, without giving any plots away, and why don't you explain to the listeners, okay, what happened to you and what all kind of things went on?
All right. Well, so the novel is really meant to bridge the gap, a real wide gap between religion and science. It converges the two together. And that's what I learned in the past 10 years through these transmissions. And pretty much follows what, I don't know if people know who Bob Dean was, but Bob Dean was a pretty spiritual person with the government, an experiencer, and he had some interesting messages that had to do with, our existence. So the Disclosure Paradox itself is really taken to a level of evaluating our own existence. And, everyone is, clamoring for disclosure. And they think that disclosure will be a sign of, high technology and development and peace on earth and all of that. And through the transmissions, I've discovered that that's not the case. What needs to happen before disclosure is for us to realize our flaws. We are inherently barbaric, we are violent, we are materialistic, and we are spiritually corrupt. And as long as we behave that way, we're not allowed to have that high technology because we just aren't suitable for that. Our psyche is not suitable for that. You notice that there's a lot of information about extraterrestrials that go to places where there are nuclear weapons. It's a big deal for the universe for us to have atomic weapons because our scientists don't realize the amount of energy that is produced when there is a detonation. It actually affects other dimensions. So when we detonated atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was like a fire alarm throughout the universe, and that's why we've had so many sightings since the early 40s. So the disclosure paradox is, how can we improve ourselves? How can we remove our flaws if we're not allowed to know what's wrong with us? Because by not communicating with us, the governments or the religious organizations, they're not really telling the truth about our existence. For instance, original sin is not what they say is in Christian doctrine. Original sin is actually our DNA. That's why we can't get rid of it. So as long as we understand our flaws, and if we can correct them, then we'll be able to join with the community of the rest of the community of the universe. But until then, if we are given the technology, and it's high technology, we will eventually weaponize it, and we'll use it against other races, because that's the way we are. We are genocidal. So that's really the main point behind the novel.
Interesting. Okay, what is your feeling? Because I've had some major people on the show here in the last month that claim they were abducted, and every one of them has said the same thing, that they're not. Well, Whitney has kind of changed his, story through the years. Just recently, because he was on my show here past week, he now starts to come to the conclusion that they might be trying to communicate with us with implants in a way that he never realized. But I've had some major people on that claim they were abducted and had very bad experiences through the abduction process. How's your feeling tie into that? Because it's been a lot of people that have claimed that they have been abducted, and people have gone missing with, like with the FBI not being able to figure out where 30,000 to 50,000 people are vanishing each year. Something is going on, cattle mutilation and all this stuff. So, is that figured into your book at all, of anything like that?
Actually, yes. There are 4 abduction stories in the novel. 2 are positive and 2 are negative. So they figure into the plot, and it relates to Dulce, actually, the secret base in New Mexico.
Well, the 2, can you tell us a little bit about the good ones, and summarize a little bit about the bad ones that were?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So a big thread in the plot is abduction. One of the characters, Mary Ellen Verarde, who is a Jicarilla Apache who lives at Dulce, she was abducted, and they took her fetus. There is another individual that she finds out had the same experiences. And then, so it goes back to Dulce. On the